Hey guys, it's Amanda here, back with another Artsy Fartsy Friday video. This week's piece is going to be another watercolor pencil piece. I did use some Copic markers and some regular colored pencils as well, but the first medium that I'm using here are my watercolor pencils. I'm using a mix of my Derwent 24 set of watercolor pencils and my Crayola set, which is a pack of 12, and I use both of them because I like both of them. I think they're both really good for different reasons. I guess if you'd want like an in-depth review and comparison, I can do that for you guys. But I decided to do this piece as part of my couples month here on my channel, where I'm drawing some of my all-time favorite couple fan art pieces. Although this piece isn't really fan art because these are my characters. These are my OCs, Aurora and Borealis. I developed these characters a couple years back, and I've done a couple of pieces with them, but not really all that much. I'm not really big on like having my own original characters. I do a lot of original art, but I don't really have like set characters that I draw or anything like that. So these are kind of some of my only OCs, and I like drawing them a lot. They're a lot of fun. I don't really have much of like a backstory for them. I kind of like to think of them as like existential beings, like they're the personification of the Northern Lights. So I don't really know if they're people or what the deal is, but that's kind of beside the point. So I drew them, transferred it to a piece of watercolor paper, and kind of just dove right into it. And this piece was a really big struggle for me, you guys. I really did not like the way this was going for the majority of the piece. The majority of this process was really defeating and really difficult for me to get through just because I really didn't like where it was going, and there were so many times where I was just tempted to color over the whole thing with Copic markers and just call it a day. And so it was really difficult. I have never had a piece where I've had that happen before. Like, never in the entire existence of my channel have I created a piece and then almost decided halfway through it just to scrap it and not to post it. Like, that's never happened to me before. So that was really weird. I kind of got art block like right in the middle of creating this piece, and it was so awful. I really had to work through it and convince myself to just keep going with the piece, even though I didn't really like where it was going. At this point in the piece, it was still okay. But as you can see, as I'm like layering on the skin and then I layer more on the background, everything just started to look really muddy, and I don't know. I'm still not that used to working with watercolor pencils, so I think that was definitely part of it. I was a little out of my element here, but I think it was important for me to go through that process because it was important for me to feel the struggle and then to overcome the struggle. The end piece I do like. I like the way it turned out actually quite a bit, but it took a lot of work to get there. This piece like took me way longer than I was expecting it to, considering it's not very big and anything like that. Also, I colored some of this on Periscope. I do have a Periscope. It's just obviously my Twitter username, which is just sillypancake one word. I'll have it down below for you guys so you can check it out. But I did color some of this on Periscope, and I think that kind of got me a little bit nervous because I was coloring on the spot, and I was nervous because I didn't really know if I was supposed to be like interacting with the people. Like, nobody in the chat was talking or anything, and so I was really unsure of like what I was supposed to do. So I was also kind of distracted, and then I kind of just got like too nervous, and so I stopped streaming it. But I do want to do more Periscope streams in the future. I will probably just stick to doing sketches or like transferring behind the scene kind of stuff rather than like coloring with a medium that I'm not familiar with. Here you can see I reached for my Copic markers just because I wanted this to be a mixed media piece initially. And so I was hoping to do like 50% watercolor, 50% Copic markers. That didn't really end up happening. I really only ended up using the Copic markers for some of the shading on the skin and the hair. But the hair is the biggest part, and I really do like the way the hair turned out on both of these characters, but I think at this point in the piece, the contrast of how vivid the Copic markers were compared to like how soft and airbrushed the background and the skin was, it just was really weird to me, and so this was the part where it started to go down. This was the part that I really kind of started to not like the piece all that much, and I wasn't really sure where I was going to go with it. I did do this piece in 2 separate settings. This was at night, and then I worked on it throughout the next day in a couple of different kind of times. So that helped because I did have some time to sit down and think about how I was going to work on the piece and everything like that. I think one of the things that was off about the piece and why it didn't look right to me was because I didn't line the piece. I really was going to go in, with the watercolors, and I didn't want to risk like ink smearing, so I didn't line the piece at all. And I think that was what it was missing. It just needed a little bit more structure than it had at this point. And of course, I do go in and I ink the piece towards the very end, and that's probably why I ended up liking it towards the very end, is because it finally had that definition that I was looking for. But all in all, I mean, this piece was a challenge for me in a lot of ways. I don't normally do mixed media. I don't normally work on watercolor paper, and the paper did buckle quite a bit, but I am not really one to stretch out my paper or tape it down because I move my paper too much when I work with watercolors. I do tape it down at one point, but only very briefly, so that when I go in and work on the background some more, the water doesn't fall down onto the rest of the piece. But this piece did inspire me in a lot of ways to want to do more mixed media, because I think it taught me a lot, especially, getting art block in the middle of the piece is the worst. It is the worst thing that can happen to you because you feel so defeated. And like I said, I was so close just to like scrapping this piece altogether and not posting it at all because I just really didn't like the way it was turning out. Here was the pivotal moment for me. I was adding more color to the background because I wanted it to be brighter, like I wanted the colors to stand out more, and I added black to it, and it just looked so muddy after that and sad. And I hated it. And so this was the point where I was like, no, I ruined it. Like, it's over. It's awful. I hate it. Like, this was that moment for me. And so I had to stop. As you can see, there was a lighting change because I went to bed and slept on it and was frustrated about it all night. Woke up and then decided, okay, I'm either going to fix this background right now or I'm going to throw this piece in the trash. So as you can see, I'm adding in some other colors to the background. I have all the 4 corners taped down, and I am just kind of doing another wash over the background, adding in these new colors. I still wanted it to be bright, and that was one of the things, is I really did like the way the initial background looked with just the very pale wash of color, but it didn't really fit with how the figures were colored, so that was what started the whole fiasco. Now, I'm doing this technique where I take a tiny brush and just a little bit of water, and I run it over the tip of a watercolor pencil, and that gives me a very concentrated amount of color. And I'm doing that with the white color pencil and adding that throughout the background to create like these cloud-like effects. And this is what saved the background. Like, thank goodness I figured out this step, because this is what really saved the day for me, and I actually ended up really liking the way the background turned out after this. And then I also did it to create some little white splatter effects throughout the piece, which I think look really pretty. You can see that on like their hair and on some of the background and stuff. It looks really pretty. So yeah, so I just want to tell you guys that if you're ever in the middle of a piece and you don't like the way it's turning out, just stick with it. The worst thing that's going to happen is you don't show it to anybody, but you learn something from it. You may not like the end result all the time, and that's fine. In fact, that's more than normal. And that's how you learn stuff. That's how you learn stuff about yourself as an artist, and that's how you learn new techniques along the way and everything like that. So just stick with it to the end, and I promise you won't feel as discouraged like I did. So now I'm just adding in some final touches with some regular colored pencils. I'm actually reaching for my Kohl Erase pencils, which I ordered back in July and haven't really used since then. So I'm using some of those in this piece just to kind of create a little bit more definition and kind of to outline the drawing a little bit, stuff like that, which I think made it look a lot better because it didn't look quite so muddy and unfinished. So I'm doing that. I really like the way Aurora's hair turned out. I love that it's kind of this purpley pink color, but I also love how it's like anti-gravity. I really dig it. I'm all about messy hair. It's my favorite thing to draw. So yeah, I really like drawing her hair, and I really like how her hair turned out. I think my anatomy overall was pretty good in this piece. I liked the sketch a lot, and I like the pose. I love the colors too. Now that it's finished, I really love the color scheme, and I really love the way that the background looks against the hair and everything like that. So in the end, I'm pretty proud of it, but I was not always proud of it, and that's normal. That's okay. But we're nearing the end of the piece here, so I'm just adding in some final touches with my colored pencils, and I do go in with a very tiny fine liner to add in the eyelashes. I'm also adding some more white splatter effects with my white watercolor pencil. There you can see I'm adding the eyelashes. And then I'm taking off the tape and I'm just rounding the corners of this piece because I thought that that gave it a really awesome finished look. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week with a brand new video. Bye guys!